Hey guys, this is Jeremy with In The DAW. Welcome back. So today we're going to be starting a new series on this channel, and that is going to be affordable gear worth checking out. And since this is going to be the first episode, I'm going to be doing it on my Accutronics Spring Reverb box. Let me see if I can get this to focus in on this. Cool. And this is just an old Spring Reverb box. It has two RCA, one input, one output. It's a really cool little box. I've had it for years, and I've used it for a lot of recordings. Now, this is something that only costs you $22, maybe plus $10 if you want to have all the adapters. And there's lots of ways to use this. But because it's a Spring Reverb box, you're going to need something that can drive a signal. So I tend to use the headphone output of my interface or my console when I'm using this. But with that said, let's just jump straight into it. We'll have a little video showing you what it looks like, how I like to connect it, and everything like that. And yeah, let's just jump straight into it. So welcome, you guys. This is the screen capture and the show and tell portion of the video, I guess. Like I said, this is going to be focusing on the Accutronics Spring Reverb box. And I'm going to have a really quick little video showing you exactly how I connected this. Now, keep in mind that Spring Reverbs are a little bit different than normal outboard gear. Normal outboard gear only needs line level, and some of them can take mic level if you're using a preamp or a compressor. And then after it processes the signal, it usually comes out line level. But because this is a Spring Reverb box, it's literally just a little tank made out of aluminum with some springs in it. It basically is going to expect a high Z signal or a guitar level signal. This is designed to usually be sent through something really high gain like an amplifier. So I like to connect it to my headphone output of my interface or my console. I will route the audio accordingly, crank up the output gain to make it as loud as possible. And then I use a couple of adapters, and that's just because I find it easier than just using patch cables for this, especially because there's so much converting that's needed. So for that, I use a 1/8 inch to RCA cable. It has two outputs, 1/8 inch. Then I use a converter that simply just turns the 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch, plug it into my headphone jack. And then I'm going to use another adapter, and that's going to convert the RCA cable into a single mono RCA cable. That way I get to send both the signals left and right into one input of the Spring Reverb. And that's going to juice the signal out pretty high and make sure that it has a really loud signal. Now, keep in mind that because we're in the analog world, now we don't have to worry about digital clipping. After that, we're going to connect this cable that I made, and this is RCA to 1/4 inch, into the output of the Spring Reverb box, into any DI you have. I'm going to use this cheap one just so you can see that you don't need to have something nice like a radial DI. And then I plug it back into my console. In this case, I'm going into channel number 2. You crank up the input gain. And this is a very important thing because if you have something that doesn't have clean gain, you're going to get a lot of hiss and maybe even some hum if you have some interference if you don't have a power conditioner. This is easily fixed with today's plugins, but in this case, we're not going to have to worry about that because the console I'm using is pretty clean and pretty loud. So with that said and done, you just go back into the computer, and this is where you will select the input. So in this case, it would be input 2. You arm it and record it, and then you just record it down. This is the only thing that tends to be a problem with analog gear is that you have to go through the entire song in order to track the effects. Now, I pre-did it so you don't have to sit here for 5 minutes just listening to this guitar play by itself. Now, one thing that might be a good tip is if you want to use something like this, you can easily connect it beforehand and track with it so that way when you're sitting down recording the guitar or whatever you're recording, it's already there. So with that said, let's take a quick listen to the Spring Reverb box on its own with no processing. So I'm going to bypass everything I put on it, and here we go. Cool. So right off the bat, you hear that it's a very dark sounding reverb. It sounds dull and muddy, but it has that really cool spring aspect. And that's something that you don't really get in a lot of plugin emulations. There are a ton of Spring Reverb plugins, but they don't tend to have that dark, ugly tone that you can get out of a real Spring Reverb box. Real Spring Reverbs don't have a lot of hi-fi sounds unless you're using a very, very high-end, very expensive Spring Reverb. Now, this is really cool because I like this sound. So if I go and play it somewhere around here with the guitar and drums, you can hear that it kind of gives it a sense of space, and it's a very unique sound. It's something that no one else has. So my Spring Reverb box is going to be unique to your Spring Reverb box. So I'm going to have that Spring Reverb sound that no one else is going to have. Let's take a quick listen. All right, cool. So we have it super loud, obviously, but we can do a lot of things to tweak this. First of all, Spring Reverbs have zero pre-delay. So what I like to do is grab a delay, and I don't have any modulation, any feedback. I just have a pre-delay for it. So for this, I'm using Auditory's Delight. That's just because I own this plugin. I did a couple videos with Plugin Boutique on a lot of these, and I really like this. It has a high frequency cut, so it automatically will thin out the sound and make it sound a little bit dull. And you can lock this to tempo, and I'm locking this to, let's go for something like a 16th note. Now let's take a listen to it with the guitar. And if we bypass it, it just gives it a slight sense of space. It basically separates the reverb from the initial guitar. So that way you have a little bit more articulation in the original guitar. After that, I went for an EQ. This is a very dark sounding reverb, so I just want to get rid of anything under 150. I do a little bit of cuts to get rid of some resonances. That was in part to the guitar that was used to record. This was a vintage Fender. And then I filter out anything above 10K. So with that, let's listen to it. Let's bypass the EQ. It just occupies a little bit less space, especially since the guitar is going to take up a lot of mid-range. So now what we could do is we can take a listen to this with the guitar and the delay and EQ. And if I bypass all the processing, it doesn't sound worse or better, but it just has a little bit less separation. It sounds like it's part of the guitar. With this, the delay is making it go back in time, and the EQ is making it fit a little bit nicer. So now all we have to do is do a volume ride to make it fit in the mix perfectly. So if we go for something a little bit more active, like around here, and then if we bypass the reverb, it just has less emotion. And a really cool thing is, because this is a piece of hardware, we can use this in tracking. So it'll make you look cooler, for one thing, but it has a unique sound and a unique flavor. So with that said, I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys like this. This is a new format, so we're going to be refining this as time goes by. I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can pick up one of these from Accutronics, and that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in a couple of seconds. All right, so that is the Accutronics Spring Reverb box from Accutronics. I will have a link in the description down below where you can pick one up. And let me know if you like this series, because there's lots of things we'd like to check out, like 12 gauge audio has a bunch of shotgun shell microphones. I have like a whole pack of those. And we have a bunch of other stomp boxes and stuff like that. So if you guys like this, let me know. And with that said, this is Jeremy Taylor with In The DAW, and I'll see you guys next time.